Yes, thank you very much for the introduction, and nice to present here this work with my former student Asal Nubari, who did this application that I will show you as part of a master's student, but has graduated since and is now working in industry. This work, again, is about the dynamic adaptation of user preferences and results in the destination recommender systems. So as was introduced before by, I think, the second speaker of the earlier session, like interactive recommender systems pose a lot of challenges. And I liked how he phrased it in the earlier session, saying, okay, any click of a user kind of counts and involves a cost. So this is about not about like data analysis, but about like user interaction with a recommendation application and the user interface. And in more detail, these kind of user or these kind of recommender systems have challenges like transparency. You want to know which item was recommended and why. Controllability, you want to specify your preferences in an appropriate way. Explorability, and you're not sure what to expect and how to kind of explore the data space. And our goal was to design an interactive recommender application in the scenario of a travel destination recommendation. So basically, you want to find a travel region or destination to go maybe for a week or two after the conference, and you have some preferences maybe for food or culture or hiking, and basically want to see where you can go based on your preferences. So I'll briefly explain some work that inspired our application. Then I will present our destination finder application from the user's perspective, and briefly report from the user study we have done to evaluate our approach. Okay, first a little bit on related work, but as was already pointed out before, there's a lot of work going on in this area of recommender systems, also interactive recommender systems. The speaker in the earlier session showed this kind of survey paper that where the papers were assigned to some of the challenges that I mentioned. I will not go into much detail here, but there are a lot of solutions to kind of some of the challenges. Our solution will not solve all the problems here, but kind of contributes to all these kind of challenges like explorability, controllability, and so on. And but I want to briefly show you two applications that inspired our work. The first one is whichbook.net. And the interesting part is you have here some kind of sliders on the left-hand side and some books on the right-hand side. And once you move the sliders and activate them, the books that are recommended immediately change. So the application immediately adapts to these kind of sliders here on the left. And we also employed some similar interaction pattern. And another application I want to show is this OECD Better Life Index. The idea here is you can also present your preferences with regard to several features here on the right, the sliders, and then it is kind of visualized how certain countries fulfill these preferences. But it's of course a little bit unclear here what this kind of flower-like symbol means and the colors means and the actual position here. So, and we want to have something like a similar application, but it's with much clearer interaction pattern and also how the item space is visualized. And our destination finder application that I will just show you in a minute is like a web application following the MVC architectural pattern model view controller. For the model, like for the data, we had like a data set of travel regions that were manually compiled from various sources with certain attributes, like if a region is kind of suitable for hiking or culture or food or something like that, also like a price level and other attributes. For the view, we had like a web application that is client-side. It was programmed with React.js. And again, the main app features are that it adapts instantly to user input and visualizes the suitability of a travel region. I will just show you in a minute. And this is done like in a map-based application. And for the controller, for the recommendation algorithm, we basically match the user preferences that can be done with sliders with the attributes of the destinations. We have published a paper also on archive.org, and you can find it on Google Scholar. And we have also made the application and the source code available using these links. Again, the links are in the paper, and the paper you can find on Google Scholar if you just enter the title there. Okay, so here is how our web application looks like. There are kind of 3 panels with this kind of map view in the middle. On the left-hand side, you can see the preference customization panel, basically like sliders, as we have seen in the Witchbook example before, and some options here to specify your budget here in the top part. So you can specify your budget, how many days you want to spend in the travel region, and also if the destinations over the budget are filtered out, because like budget is a little bit different than other features, because of course cheaper is always better. But usually you have a kind of a maximum budget, and you cannot spend infinite amount of money, of course, on your travels. And then the main idea is here you have these kind of sliders that can be adapted to see if, for example, nature, architecture, and other attributes that are important to you. So this is basically the options to specify your preferences. And then here in the center part, this is the map panel. As you can see here, like a map with colors and numbers. The colors indicate the suitability of the travel region, of the certain region, according to your preferences here on the left. So green means it's like an excellent fit, and then towards red, it means like a poor fit. So again, colors indicate the suitability. The numbers you can see here, like 1, 4, 10, indicates the overall rank of our travel region, according to the preferences. Our travel regions are roughly correspond to kind of country borders. We have like 200 destinations or travel regions here, but larger countries like US or China are separated into several travel regions, and smaller countries, for example, here in Europe, are merged into one region. Then on the right-hand side, you can see the results panel. This is basically like a list of the 10 best results here according to your preferences. You can show more details on the individual travel regions. And then we have here a bar chart that compares the destination with your stated preferences. So again, like the same attributes like in the sliders. And the little black indicator shows your preferences, like all in the middle here. And the colors, the bar chart shows how the actual region or the destination will fit this feature. Then you have here like a pie chart. This will illustrate the features contribution to the overall score. So each region has a score. So the Sweden and Denmark here is ranked first according to our model and our preferences. And this pie chart here says, okay, like the colors again relate to the features, like the attributes, and the larger part of the pie chart indicates that this attribute is a better fit and contribute to the overall score in a larger way. So it's a little bit hard to see, but for example, this kind of purple beach value is smaller because Sweden and Denmark are not so much known for beaches, so this is kind of lower, and that's why here the contribution is smaller. And again, you can adapt the sliders, and immediately the colors and the numbers will change here to see where you can go according to your preferences. And again, here on the right-hand side, you can interact with the actual items. You can also click here in the map, and it will come up with some kind of similar visualization, but this will kind of show how your preferences are matched here in the item space. We have done a user study to evaluate our application. We had like 70 participants that kind of tried out the application, played around with it, and then answered questions. For the questionnaire, we used the rescue framework. This is an approach to evaluate recommender systems from a user's perspective. It's questionnaire based, so it's a large collection basically of questions that are in certain groups like interface adequacy, and we selected in total 19 questions to evaluate our elements of our application. So for example, like a question like, I found it intuitive to modify my preferences in the recommender using the sliders. So to kind of find out whether our elements that I just showed you were useful for the users to, for example, specify the preferences, also to learn about the item space and see why certain items were recommended or not. Okay, just a brief overview in the sake of time. Most participants found our application useful for the intended task to find a destination for travel. So we had overall positive responses for ease of use, adequacy, for example, for the question that I put here as an example, intuitively and controllability. So overall, this kind of was a success. The only part of the user interface that had a significant negative or neutral responses was this kind of pie chart here in the corner. So this is a little bit hard for the participants to understand what the colors and the overall pie chart here means. And again, this was to see how each parameter's effect on the recommendation. So maybe for this part, we need a little bit of a better visualization, but overall, the other elements here of the user interface were perceived very well. Okay, for future work, we think about improving the kind of travel model here, of the model of the destinations, for example, modeling when to go or travel seasons. Also could have something like an interface for novice user, make it a little bit simpler, and also maybe for expert users with more elements on it. But overall, again, our controls and our elements in the user interface were perceived well. One idea is also to consider group recommendation, because users usually travel in groups. So you have preferences from different people that needs to be merged and aggregated, and also somehow shown on the map or on the application on how each individual's preferences would fit the travel regions here. So I think group recommendation would be a next step, because it's a little bit harder, of course, to visualize all the different preferences. And by the way, since our application is just a client side for group recommendation, we would have some kind of server application to store all the individual preferences and merge them. This is not done before, so it's more like a lightweight web-based application based on React.js so far. Okay, so this will conclude my presentation. Thanks for listening, and I'm happy to answer questions.